Welcome to Lose Lips, all the things you wanted to say but didn't know how to say it. Today's topic is the United States prepared for war? Since the start of the Ukrainian war, countries have been sending in armor and weapons to help them take back their country. It seems as if some countries and even the United States are holding back on their best weapons. It could be because of technology training, advancement, or even countries don't want to show to the extent what is even available at the moment. Some countries have even been sending in weapons as a test to see how they compare on the battlefield. This brings to question, though, how many countries, and this includes the United States, are actually prepared to go to war? There has not been an expansive war in decades, since World War II to be exact. Sure, there have been times when troops, and this includes Americans, have been on the ground and fighting. Think Iran, Afghanistan. But to what extent have we been preparing for an extensive war where we literally send thousands of our troops and services in active combat? There has been talk of if we go to war with China, if Putin detonates a nuclear bomb. These are instances where the US will get involved, and I am sure many other countries as well. What the Ukrainian war has proved thus far is even though Russia had an impressive army and numbers, they have failed on the battlefield. Ukraine, on the other hand, seems to be self-taught, with many countries training their soldiers and other countries to be ready for battle. Now, to even strengthen the links taken on the battlefield, Ukrainian pilots will be trained on F-16 fighter jets at last, which some are saying will be a game changer in this war. But there are still many weapons that are not available to the Ukrainians from the United States. And I believe in part it is due to not give our upper hand if we were to place boots down. Is it so far-fetched to think that the armies and service have capabilities that we have yet to be seen since the nuclear bomb? In times of war, it is always best to have the element of surprise. Recently, Putin has been stating that he has created an unstoppable hypersonic bomb. The Patriot system destroyed such a bomb. Putin routinely threatens to use his nuclear arsenal. In the beginning, we all thought that with Putin being sick and unhinged, he would push the nuclear button any moment. But seeing his troops and his arsenal on the battlefield, no one sees him as a threat anymore. Not only are his weapons subpar, you have to wonder if his nuclear arsenal even works anymore. I am sure there are countries, inclusive of the United States, that are keeping their best weapons under wraps. This no longer includes Russia. If the US would go to war against China, would we fear China in a way we used to fear Russia? China also has a large army, but has not set boots on the ground. Also, cheap Chinese products. Are their weapons cheap as well? There have been some that have said that China has shipped boots, helmets, armor to Russia, and the quality has not been good. Think about The Matrix, Transformers, Men in Black. Are those pieces of weapons in the movies so far off track, or do we have them in our arsenal as well? It is right to keep things under wraps until absolutely necessary. You see, when the United States bombed Hiroshima, it was a game changer because not only had anything ever been used like it before, it also started a wave of other countries trying to emulate what the United States had. In this day and age, I am sure if we sent some of those items to Ukraine, other countries would not only have an idea of what we have, but would start production of their own, and we would no longer be in the forefront. It is obvious that if another world war starts, there will be a game changer of different weapons. Drones have already proved very useful on the battlefield. Electronic warfare, robots, no longer where we are in the age where tanks, planes, and guerrilla warfare will play a part. Everything and anything is possible. And with digital footprints all over the place, it is not even impossible to think of lasers within our satellites. There are even talks that the Air Force wants to reveal its space weapon to show the world, and of course, this would be the first of its kind, as there have been many speculations as to what it can and will be, but no one has seen or heard of it as of yet. But let's be clear, even if there is a timeline when such a weapon will be unveiled, I am sure that it is only a teaser of what the United States will not show to the public, meaning that we are only seeing what the government is allowing us to see. There is a secret cache of weapons that will never be unveiled unless we are forced to unveil them, such as in a war against the states. As we watch the war in Ukraine, many countries are also seeing what is working and what is not working in the battlefield. Nations are taking note as to what their own inventory needs to do. It is said that many nations are behind the United States. Not only do we take care of our old inventory, we take care of our current inventory, inclusive of nuclear weapons. I think this is why, in the beginning, when Putin declared that if other nations helped, he would resort to nuclear weapons, so many nations backed off. After all, no one wants another Hiroshima, and nations took notice. But with the disastrous results of the Russian army in terms of preparedness, weapons, and just downright embarrassment, no one looks at the Russian army or even their stockpile as a threat. To have to go and pull out tanks from the Soviet era is an embarrassment. To have your army retrofit the tanks with wire so as to avoid bombs being dropped by drones is an embarrassment. No one fears the Russian army. When looking at the weapons that are playing out in Ukraine, other nations are looking to see what is to be feared and what they can even add to their own arsenal. It is interesting that Iran has supplied Russia with their drones, and they are even now being taken out. Although Iran has not sent Russia what they claim to be their best, as they need to keep some for themselves, it is obvious that Russia is way behind in terms of development in their own military supplies. What was once their fierce weapon, the supersonic missile, has now been turned to rubble. I am sure countries are looking at how their own weapons are playing out. It is one thing to have a weapon on hand, it is another to see how it actually performs. Putin has recently declared treason on three scientists who were behind his supersonic weapon, but that is another story altogether. Needless to say, the weapons that are currently on the field are a showcase to the nations that are represented in NATO. I think it shows not only a force to be reckoned with, but it also shows that if NATO boots were on the ground, Russia would not stand a chance. There are nations that are currently watching to see how everything plays out, to decide what will happen in their own country's future. China has threatened Taiwan and is playing a slippery rope right now with keeping Russia as an ally. But with China supplying Russia with inferior gear, it makes you wonder if their weapons are inferior as well. Plus, you have to remember that China has never had boots on the ground. Who is even to say how they would perform in an actual war? At least Russia has invaded before, so you would think they would know how to fight. But other countries they fought before were never any type of competition. Ukraine is a different story as they are fighting for their sovereignty. What would China have to fight for? Since the war has started, not only do you now have smaller nations wanting to join NATO after seeing what Russia has done, but also seeing our weapons on the ground. You also have countries wanting to feel protected, and with what is being shown, it is obvious that NATO can provide that and Russia can't. It is a sorry state when you have a once feared great power now being relegated to a third world country with little to offer. United States has a great military, but interestingly enough, numbers have decreased with civilians wanting to join the service. And maybe if there was ever a draft again, we would even face the same problem as Russia, with soldiers not being properly trained. I don't know, but what I do know is that the people in the service are expected to go to war at any time. With the amount of money that is spent on the military as well as research and development, I do believe that we would be a force to be feared in any war. I do know that there are weapons that no one has ever heard of or even thought of and are being kept with utmost secrecy. Also, with the CIA, I am also sure that there are also briefings on what other countries are planning in order for us to be prepared. The war with Ukraine was known beforehand. Of course, Zelensky did not believe it or even want to believe it. I did not want to believe it, but it happened anyway, all due to one sick person. That's all for today. Thanks for listening to Loose Lips. Until next time.